fam. Now let's break down the latest of Max Keiser and his predictions starting all the way back in 2011. That's right, in 2011, I think Bitcoin price was less than $10 per coin. Max and Stacy are the first one to get credited with international TV coverage of Bitcoin via the Keiser report. Let's break this down along with his price prediction. So here's the official tweet. Here are the receipts, fam. November 27th, 2011, Max Keiser tweeted, Bitcoin has about 100,000 users now. My goal is to try to get that number up to 1 million users in 2012. As he shared here as a reference, one of my first Bitcoin tweets from 2011, my goal then was to get 1 million new Bitcoin users by 2012. Then he also went on to share, and this is documented January 10th of 2021, short-term price target, 65,000 in play. And he also said he had 220,000 in play as his long-term target. Now, lo and behold, we hit that short-term target in November of that year, smashing 65 and hitting the all-time high of $69,000. He also says that BlackRock agrees with his $220,000 interim price target for Bitcoin and that target is still in play. And I know he has been saying this target has been in play for quite some time, but you got to give the man respect because he is one of the earliest adopters of Bitcoin and one of the biggest proponents to be sharing it on a global stage. He also shared back in, let's see here, September of 2021, he wrote, by the time America catches up to El Salvador and starts buying Bitcoin, the price will be over $1 million per coin. Let me know if you agree or disagree with this prediction. Now I want to share with you a particular interview he did entitled El Salvador will become debt-free in 2030 with Bitcoin mining. And again, he was asked many questions, and here's what he had to share. How will Volcano Energy's investment in the country be executed? He shared the initial capital of $250 million will go towards geothermal energy. And while that is achieved, wind and solar energy will be first worked on. The infrastructure is already in Metapon. Everything is assembled, and we have been actively building. And to get the geothermal project, it would take 4 or 5 years to get it up and running. Meanwhile, the solar and wind project will be built and should be operating within 6 to 9 months. And I believe some of the solar and wind projects are already up and activated. And he's ultimately saying the geothermal energy aspect, which is the volcano energy, is going to take a few years. Next question, what will the benefits of the mining project be on the El Salvador economy? He says this project represents self-sufficiency for the country because we will mine Bitcoin ourselves in El Salvador. It also gives us geographical importance for the Bitcoin network. The idea that El Salvador is a large mining center allows for generating jobs in the area, increasing the gross domestic product and benefits of the country. Countries around the world are beginning to accumulate and mine Bitcoin as the world of fiat money and central banks disintegrate. With the benefit of President Nayib Bukele's new laws, such as making Bitcoin a legal tender, we have the ability to lead the world and arguably become the richest country in the world. Let's freaking go. Shout out to Bukele and all the people of El Salvador. Volcano's energy mission is to make El Salvador the richest nation on earth. Bitcoin is the new oil, and El Salvador will be the Saudi Arabia of Bitcoin. Very powerful words there, fam. And by 2030, Volcano Energy's market cap will exceed El Salvador's GDP of $29 billion and reach $50 billion as we expand geothermal mining and the price of Bitcoin soars to $1 million per coin. It is a mathematical certainty. Damn right. This country will be debt-free by 2030 with Bitcoin and geothermal Bitcoin mining. Let's go. He was also asked, what is the long-term vision with this mining project? Max responded, El Salvador will have the largest Bitcoin mining project in the world. We will start with 241 megawatts, but the idea is clearly to increase to 5,000, 10,000, 15,000, or even 20,000 megawatts. The main source over time will be the geothermal energy, and the country is rich in it, and we will use this resource. One of the main things that attracted us to El Salvador was the potential for Bitcoin mining with geothermal energy. I also like to point out all the other Central American and Latin American countries that have volcanoes that can tap into geothermal energy. So they basically are providing the blueprint. Globally, 52% of the Bitcoin mining is already done with renewable energy. Take that. You know what I mean? FUD from Elon Musk with ESG and all that nonsense. Because it is much cheaper. Bitcoin solves emission problems. Bitcoin is the cleanest industry in the world and promotes peace, unlike the fiat money industry, which is the most harmful to the environment and also promotes violence. Facts. Will the company hire Salvadoran talent? He says, yes. Who is the CEO of Volcano Energy? A Salvadoran who is a pioneer in Bitcoin mining. He has worked on large mining projects in Norway and is one of the best mining experts of the world. And he has returned to El Salvador under the leadership of President Nayib Bukele. How many of you have been to El Salvador? Let me know, chat. The company will look for the best talent available in the country. Hundreds of jobs will be created at the start of the project and thousands of jobs over time. Depending upon the progress, we are going to train Salvadorans, but there are already engineers in the country who develop mining with geothermal energy and specialists in construction and energy. There is good talent. And what will your role in the company be, Max? He says, my role as CEO is to raise money and develop architecture of a business model. This is an investment with compound interest. That is, part of the profits will be reinvested into Bitcoin mining and increasing the megawatts. Usually, the mining industry is based on over-indebtedness, and that becomes a problem. We are not using leverage with debt since it is through shareholders' equity. 23% of the profits will go to the Salvadoran government, 27% to investors, and 50% is reinvested in mining under the company's proprietary Keiser rehash feature. It has been called that since I developed the idea and made it a part of the business model, and we are the only mining company in the world that does it this way. The effect is that a compound function is created that increases the hash rate, which is the amount of computing power to mine a Bitcoin, also understood as the ability of a single mining rig to do a mathematical calculation like any compound function. This is a concept that is common in finance, but I determined that it will also be used effectively in the mining industry, not only to the increase of the hash rate, but also to reduce the volatility. So there you have it. Now, Max also shared in an interview with Bitcoin, it's kind of the end of price discovery because everything will be priced in Bitcoin eventually. Preach. Everything goes to zero against Bitcoin. And so for someone like myself who has been following this for 40 years, finance markets, technology, Bitcoin is the holy grail. It is the end all. I would say my compatriot in all of this is the one and only Michael Saylor. When you hear Michael Saylor talk, he talks about the aesthetics of Bitcoin, the beauty of Bitcoin, and he speaks about it in a way I think that carries the torch from the Max and Stacy from 2011. He started buying it, I guess, when it was 10 or 12,000 or so in 2020. So we were there from 2011 to 2020. I think he's kind of carried the torch from 2020 in a lot of ways, introducing Bitcoin to massive pools of capital. I am surprised that more companies haven't followed his lead, giving the break in inflation we have had exactly as Saylor predicted, the melting ice cube, as he called it. And at that time, it's exactly what happened. Well, I guess we can now say we're in the era where BlackRock and these other major institutions are now looking at Bitcoin. So his work on the institutional level, I guess, is bearing fruit. Now, 3 years later, I see in the Middle East, they are starting to recognize Bitcoin. So that's a huge pool of capital. I think all of that oil money will find its way into Bitcoin and be a huge catalyst for the higher prices. It's a natural way for the oil industry to diversify their portfolio because Bitcoin is essentially energy, and the energy eventually gets priced in Bitcoin. And there is a marriage between these two in a big way. So I think that's kind of the answer. I've always been fascinated by price discovery and markets and the architecture of how markets work under the hood. And Bitcoin is such a pristine, perfect money that I think it is something that humans have been searching for since forever. And now we are seeing it change society on a really fundamental level with the introduction of Bitcoin. A lot of people are freaking out because of it, because it destroys the status quo. And a lot of people have been waiting for it to come along, have the faith that humanity can be saved. They see Bitcoin in those terms. So you have this split going on, which is very exciting. So it just continues on and on. How can you not be interested in it? I think the people who were into it earlier and walked away just never got it from the beginning. Once it's categorized as an asset class, we have nothing to do except position ourselves in this asset class. Either we are going to be a small position or a big position, but we cannot ignore it. We cannot not have a position. Preach. Now listen up, fam. So even 1% of that multi-$100 trillion funds available moves the needle on Bitcoin, and it moves it up considerably. So if we get into the 5 to 10% range, then you start to really see it raise ahead to the 7-figure type predictions that people have been making, including myself, because it is an asset class. And on the flip side, what we have seen in the gold market, which is the ability to control price discovery and manipulate the prices, is real through the derivatives market. So the price of gold has been lagging inflation for 20 years, 2 decades, fam, because the governments around the world don't like gold making their fiat money look bad. That's right. Gold undermines the US dollar. So they make it easy for huge funds to manipulate the price of gold and to scalp it to continuously skim profits off of gold, which is what they do almost every day. You can watch it and you can see it. In fact, it's pretty clear. And they are very good at keeping the price of gold and silver down. There is something like for every ounce of silver, there's probably 50 ounces worth of derivatives floating in various exchanges around the world that are used to keep the price of silver down, because governments don't want gold to race ahead and draw capital out of their fiat money scam and into gold. Facts. And with Bitcoin, we have the ability to pull our private keys, which is not really available with gold. So technically, people can take delivery of gold on these exchanges, but there's never been an organized attempt to do so. We tried to do it a few years ago. It crashed JP Morgan, buy gold and silver, because after the 2008 financial crisis, when JP Morgan ended up buying Bear Stearns effectively for nothing, they inherited this huge multi-million-dollar short silver position that Bear Stearns was managing at the behest of presumably the government. The government likes to stay involved. And also, I did some calculations, and it became clear that if this short position was not covered, the price of silver got to $60 or $70 an ounce, it would bankrupt JP Morgan Chase. So we started this crash JP Morgan buy silver campaign, and we got the price of silver from $15 up to $50. So we got it up to the old Hunt Brothers $50 level, and then the Fed, of course, came in and changed the laws overnight to make it possible for these banks to have and carry much greater short positions in silver. So they printed up a lot of paper silver derivatives, and they stopped the run on their bank, and the price went back down to $15 or so. And it leaves us with this as a conclusion. So we have seen that it is possible to force capitulation in the silver market, but at the end of the day, because the ability to pull private keys is not like it is with Bitcoin, I don't think it'll ever succeed. Whereas with Bitcoin, you can pull your private keys. So there you have it, fam. Let me know if you agree or disagree with the one and only Max Keiser. And he recently just did an interview with Bitcoin Magazine entitled Buy, Love, Sell, Fear. I highly encourage you to check that out as well. Maybe in a future episode, I will be covering that